Hi, everyone. Welcome to All Out Coach, where I tell you to stretch yourself and lift others. This is the podcast where I introduce leaders across many different industries who want to share their legacy. Today, I have a special guest who's a next generation leader. His name is Tarun Nimmagadda, and he's one of the top 30 under 30 by INC. He's recognized by Forbes as top 50 entrepreneurs. He has a computer science background. He's on the board of the University of Texas in Austin. And also he's been recognized by the White House as one of the most promising entrepreneurs. He's the CEO of Mutual Mobile, and he's going to talk to us about his journey and about his new venture that's very timely today in the crisis and the nightmare that we're all living globally. So welcome, Tarun.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, thanks for the conversation today. Just a small correction. I'm the CEO of Ruckit, actually formerly the CEO of Mutual Mobile. It's a company I co-founded. But yeah, really excited to talk to you today about what we're doing to tackle the coronavirus threat that we all face as a common enemy.
Sure. Thank you, Tarun. Can you take us a little bit through your journey? I know you came to the United States 16 years ago and you founded different companies. Take us through some of the leadership journey of yours.
I came to America when I was 17 years old to study computer science as an undergraduate at the University of Texas. And that itself was an amazing experience. As I was graduating, there was a pretty incredible moment in time because Steve Jobs announced the iPhone and the App Store. I was very fortunate that happened at exactly the time I was graduating. Also, by the way, coincidentally, it was the last big recession was happening at the exact same time. Me and a couple of my college friends, we started a company called Mutual Mobile that built the very first iPhone apps. And we built one of the largest iPhone and Android app development agencies in the country, building apps like Google Wallet and ESPN Sports Center apps that were used by millions, hundreds of millions of people. And actually, still when I was 21 years old, we had a challenge called the DARPA Network Challenge, where DARPA issued a competition saying, hey, who can, this was sort of like a simulated threat response to the country. And it was a $50,000 prize, not a big one, but who is going to be able to help the country resolve a terrorist threat? And so they released 10 balloons across the country, and whoever finds those 10 balloons first wins. So me and my co-founders at Mutual Mobile, we actually decided that the right way to solve that is through an app. And within a matter, so we built an app and published it and got people to download it so that they can take photos of that red balloon, send it to us so we can verify that it was one of those red balloons. And in a matter of about 8 hours or so, we were able to collect the locations of 9 of those 10 balloons. MIT actually won that competition. They got all 10 using a multi-level marketing scheme. But it was funny today because 10 years ago, we were using phones and GPS to solve a simulated threat. And today, we're back here, realizing that, phones and GPS technology have come a long way. I think we can use it to solve the coronavirus threat, except this time it's not a simulation. And we have trained for this. And we've always been training for this. So I'm really excited to talk to you about what we're doing and how we're approaching this coronavirus threat.
I think a lot of the listeners of All Out Coach and those in your network are going to be excited to hear that there may be a way that they can be informed better, which may lift them up. And that is my hope, because at All Out Coach, as I mentioned, I want leaders to lift others up, through these podcasts, through that mentorship that takes place over 30 minutes or 1 hour. and time is so precious now. And the reason that you and I really started to talk about this initiative was the group that I had created, Koro Trace, on
Mhm.
LinkedIn,
Yep.
where I had identified this gap where patients are regarded and considered, reported as numbers. Yes, we hear about the patients in different counties across our states, right, nationwide, and Johns Hopkins has a great tracker. But what are we doing to really trace their whereabouts, their prior whereabouts, and details about those who we personally become aware of that test positive for coronavirus in order to avoid and stop the spread? That's the question that's really not being filled right now by our authorities locally or across the state.
Hmm.
So a systematic app is something that South Korea had very early on in its epidemic and its epicenter, early on. And so that's just a little bit of history for those who are going to listen of how you and I, given that we're in different industries, really start to talk. So let's get right into it and talk to what you see as the gaps from a technological perspective currently, and then tell us what you can potentially provide in the near future.
Yeah. So as I was researching this, I think came across your group and talking about the importance of contact tracing as a pillar of our response to this epidemic. Contact tracing has been a pillar of every response that mankind has had to every epidemic in human history. And I believe that it is going to be a pillar of our response this time also. Quarantines are important, vaccines are important. These are all pillars of the response, but we are not going to get through this without contact tracing. Now, well, how does contact tracing work? I mean, that's how we kind of addressed smallpox before there was a vaccine. That's how we addressed SARS before there was a vaccine, the last coronavirus.
Yeah.
But contact tracing is very manual, right? So you have to, the hospital official has to rely on your memory, and they interview you as to your whereabouts and where were you at this time. And with coronavirus, we know can be infectious for up to 8 days, and it can stay on surfaces potentially up to 3 days. You have to remember 10 days worth of history of everywhere that you have been and what time you were there and what people you might have possibly encountered at that time. Can you imagine how labor intensive that process is to do for one person, let alone to do it for 50,000 people, and to do it when 10,000 cases are popping up every day?
Yeah, and they're rising exponentially. Yeah.
It's going to overwhelm our health system. And this is why I believe that manual contact tracing is going to continue to be important, but we need digital contact tracing. In a day and age where everybody has a smartphone with GPS,
Yeah.
literally, I personally believe the government should require us to install an app that allows them to track our whereabouts for this period of time. And I'm saying that as a libertarian, as somebody that really does not believes in freedoms and privacy and all of that. But I think there's a time when we should be willing to give up some of our privacy in order to save lives.
Absolutely.
And
I think there's no other time than now to consider.
this is the time. This is not a time to say privacy is the most important. Lives are more important than privacy. This is not a guess as to how many lives we can save. We will actually save lives if we are able to be proactive with contact tracing. And that's one of the things that I think about in terms of like, what do we do? I think we need a mobile phone GPS based solution. I think privacy is important, but it's not so important that you compromise the safety of people and the saving of lives just to make sure that this is the most private thing that has ever been built. And I think time to market is important. It's important we do it now, because every day that passes, there's a life that we could have saved that might not have been saved because the product or the solution has not been out to market. So that's what we're building as part of this Koro Trace group. We have a prototype, It works. We're trying to make sure the app is scalable. But the basic way that the application works is you install it on your phone and you would self-report that you have a coronavirus positive test. We would confirm that it was actually a positive test, that it's not a fake report. And then the system would automatically notify all the people that you have come into contact with. And in a radius of 6 to 10 feet, and in a time horizon of anywhere between maybe 3 hours, but some people say maybe it's up to 2 days. So that means if I went to a restaurant, or if I went to a park bench and I sat down there and I later got tested positive for corona, anybody that went and sat on that same park bench for the next 3 hours or 3 days, depending on what medical professionals agree is the period of contagiousness, they will be notified automatically if they have their app on the phone, because we'll be matching their GPS timestamp with the person that was infected and do it completely automatically.
Okay. So what type of infrastructure does this require, and how close are we to getting a prototype?
Well, this is, I think at the end of the day, what we need as a part of a backend is what we're calling a spatio-temporal database. So it's just a big word for a database that is indexed both in space and in time. So we can run queries saying who was here at this time. Most databases are actually not built for that kind of a question and answer. So believe it or not. So we're having to make sure that the systems that we're using can scale if millions of people download this app and are trying to rely on it, then that the app can support that. Luckily, the system scales linear to the number of people that are reported positive. So the fewer people that report positive, the more easy it is for us to do the calculation on how many people need to be notified. And hopefully that number remains low, but we want to be ready as far as the system is concerned, that even if there's thousands of people that are reporting positive cases, that our system can handle that load without buckling under the pressure. But I also want to say that this app and technology is not the only answer. This is, like I said before, this is one of the pillars of the response, contact tracing itself. And within contact tracing, manual contact tracing is going to continue to be important, because if somebody went to a particular location and you need to manually notify other people that have visited that location who may or may not have the app installed on their phone. So digital contact tracing will not eliminate or replace the manual contact tracing, but I think it'll amplify it to a great degree and make it more instantaneous. Yeah, I mean, so my sister is in Singapore right now, and she moved there a few months ago, and she's been telling me about what the Singapore government has been doing to deal with this problem. And if you look at all the charts, Singapore is doing better than any other country in the world. They had the very first cases of coronavirus almost anywhere in the world, but they have done the best job of clamping down on the number of cases of anyone in the world. And it makes you realize that this could have been stopped. It didn't have to be this bad. And if we had reacted sooner, if we had reacted more decisively sooner, we would not have had to shut down the whole country.
Absolutely.
Quarantine is not a foregone conclusion. It didn't have to happen if we were able to control at the borders, if we were able to test. And now we're in the situation that we're in. So it's, it's more important that we focus on the future. What can we do now?
Testing, tracing, and treating are the three parts of the formula that South Korea, that Singapore has done so well, Japan also, right? That United States unfortunately is not doing. And in Singapore, you mentioned the Singapore example. What was it that they did so well? That
you can go on a website right now and see the contact tracing website for Singapore. It has a list of every single person that has had coronavirus and who they got it from, and it traces back. This person went to a church and he gave it to 150 people. and they trace back every single person that went to that church, and it's all in public. They don't disclose the names. They say
Yeah.
35-year-old male, but it's all there, and it has been a very, very critical part of Singapore's response and how they've stopped it.
Well, soon I'm very hopeful that it'll also be here with your efforts and your leadership, Tarun.
Yeah, with working with you and with others, hopefully we can do this together. We're all in this together, and we need to solve this together.
Given that I don't have nearly the expertise that you do in technology, I will say that technology today, I think, increases our exposure. It doesn't make us intelligent, but it increases our exposure. So now we can embrace, I think, the time that we have and take the matter into our own hands, if you will, as a community, to address the gaps and that are not filled by our authorities and by the systems currently in place. Mm-hmm. So I think if we combine, based on what you said, the manual system, our manual network, our activity, in some systematic way, whether it be through the Koro Trace group that I created, that I hope will get many more to follow it, mm-hmm. To identify and to notify each other about such contacts, complemented by the app that you have, mm-hmm. that you're developing. I think that we can, as you mentioned, save many lives. And I'll give you some examples of how inconsistent some of this contact tracing is becoming. Here I'm in New York, which is which is an epicenter, right? And there is a patient that my father had. My father's a physician. I had a patient who came in. He was coughing. His wife had been coughing. He had a very elective surgery. He came into the office anyway. He ignored his wife's symptoms. His wife ended up testing positive. And we don't know now when he will test, who he will notify. There's a lot of people who are just reckless. And he happened to be an elderly gentleman, a mature gentleman. But there are many next generation leaders out there, unfortunately, who are going to the beaches still in Florida, who are going on Bourbon Street, and who are not treating this the same way, and they're not flattening the curve. Mm-hmm. So they need to know what areas they need to avoid. So there are many stories like that, and unfortunately, there probably will be more in the coming days. So I think that you're solving a major problem that's only going to be increasing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of it, is that in the short term, we need to think the next 4 weeks are going to be the worst weeks the country has ever faced, possibly since World War II. And hospitals are going to be overloaded all across the country, hopefully just in a few regions, so that other regions can rush to their assistance.
Now, what can people who are going to listen, what can they do to help with your cause and with our cause? Because I'm kind of also partnering with you as a volunteer.
Yes.
Right? And because I think it's our civic duty, which you and I both agree upon.
Yep.
But what can they do, or who do you want to partner with? Do you have a message for other next generation leaders or for other business leaders, Tarun?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some hard technical problems that we need to solve. So we need more engineers, particularly engineers that have experience with GIS and backend technologies that are where we're able to automatically figure out what location somebody was in based on their GPS history, so we can notify the venue, not just other people that were in that location. So this is a hard GIS or GPS based technology problem. So the more people with that expertise that can join in and help, that I think that's going to help us a lot from a technology perspective. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I think we need experts from every field, from communications to public policy to infectious disease. We've created a Slack channel where we have groups for people from different disciplines to collaborate, and from each group to come up with the best solution for their discipline, and so that we can work together to make sure that this app is prepared for tens, if not hundreds of millions of people. I want to be realistic and say, look, there might be a point where the government says, the app is great, we want to release it as an official app, and I would love that. All our efforts will be open source, so anybody can take this and run with it and fork it. If a different country wants to take this idea and adapt it for their country, that's completely welcomed and wanted. So I invite people from all disciplines to raise their hand and to reach out. I think we created an email address that I can send you, where people can reach out to join our Slack channel, and so we can work together and collaborate and make this a reality and make this happen fast.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I connected with you, Tarun, and I'm really excited about your venture here and your solution, your human solution. I think heading into the weekend, I think that it's something that's very promising. I do want to just ask you, since you are realistic and we want to be realistic, what is the worst case scenario? What is the best case scenario in terms of when you can roll this out, make it available to the public right now? Ballpark, if you can share with us.
Yeah, I think best case scenario, we can make it available in less than a week. And
great.
But I think there are a couple of challenges that we may run into that could delay us by another week or so, because there could be there could be legal issues, approval issues, privacy issues, things that we're not thinking about on top of the scalability issue, which is what we're trying to deal with right now.
With the staff that you have now, you would be able to.
I believe so. I believe we'll be able to finish this with the staff we have. I mean, again, it's already kind of in some form or shape ready, but we need to polish this and think of all of the things that we're not thinking about right now, because we've only been doing this for 3 days. So, been burning the midnight oil, and we'll continue to do that so that we can get this ready for the general public as quickly as we can.
Yeah. Before we talked today, you mentioned that this is going to be not just an app, but this is going to require leadership. Mm-hmm. So what comments do you have for next generation leaders out there, you being a leader, a mentor as well? What type of leadership were you referring to right now that's needed right now amidst this crisis?
Well, the thing that comes to my mind in this moment is a word from my Indian tradition, which is Dharma. And Dharma stands for, it's loosely can be translated to duty. And, we have a duty to our friends and our family, to protect them and be there for them at this time. But and in that sense, we can all be leaders in our own homes. But some of us are in a position where we need to lead companies, we need to lead communities, we need to lead our neighborhoods, we need to lead in a bigger way. And as soon as you are able to take care of those that are closest to you, start looking broader. Ask what you can do for a bigger and bigger circle, your community, your city, your country, your state, and the world, right? And I think this is a time to do your duty.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
What a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. It was those words, civic duty, that connected us. Thank you very much for your time, Tarun. Look forward to working with you. And tune in to All Out Coach, my podcast, everyone. And also Koro Trace, the group that currently is on LinkedIn, that we're both a part of, both Tarun and I.
Great.
Thank you, Tarun, very much.
Thanks, Sam. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.